You know, he said he didn't play well enough. He never sulked. He was there with his teammates. He was active. He was a positive presence in the locker room. His teammates absolutely loved him. So this is a guy that can lead a locker room as a quarterback. He has every single intangible checked off.
Today on JetCast, I have Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. He's a beat reporter who covers the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's got a lot of opinions about Justin Fields, what kind of a player he was on and off the field, and what he could possibly bring to the New York Jets. Let's get into it. Nick, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, so give our audience a little bit of background on who you are and how you got into your role being a beat writer for Penn Live covering the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I started out playing high school football, of course, and that eventually became something in college as well. Studied to get into journalism. I started out, covering high school ball, and then eventually covered Pitt. That's where I really kind of got into this, and eventually just progressed to the Steelers. And so I've kind of just gone up the ladder. I'm from Pittsburgh, so it's basically just a natural progression, right? Just go from the Whippeal, which is Western PA football, high school ball, Pitt to the Steelers. I may as well have just gone up the pipeline, I guess. So it's been really, really good. I really enjoy beat writing. I've been an NFL fan since I was like, since I can remember, right? So
All of us.
right, man. I like came out of the womb like it. My dad was like a super fan of it.
Yeah.
It right behind me, I have like all these different like these figurines. I have a whole setup behind me. You can see the LaDainian Tomlinson thing, former Jet, by the way, LaDainian
Yeah.
Tomlinson. That's a Chargers, LaDainian Tomlinson. But
Yep.
yeah, man, I got into it through very different things, and now I'm here.
Cool. So obviously the biggest thing I want to talk to you about is Justin Fields. Now, I know he didn't spend too much time on the Steelers, but it's good to have someone on the show that's actually been around him, asked him questions, and have covered him. As far as Jet fans are concerned, there's two categories. There are people that think he's an absolute bust and people that are ecstatic. I don't think there's really sort of a middle ground there, especially with Jet fans. There's never a middle ground on anything. But from your time covering the Steelers, what stood out to you about Justin Fields, both on and off the field?
Well, let's start on the field. I mean, if you guys see this guy up close and personal, he's not built like a quarterback at all. You look at him and you say, "Whoa, that guy's a linebacker." I mean, he is built, man. He's 6'3", every bit of 220, 230. He's explosive. The athletic things that you see with him up front, the ball just jumps out of his hand. He's extremely explosive when he cuts it upfield. So the athletic stuff is so real. You could see it on tape, but in person, it is a marvel to watch. Off the field, I think he's one of the most professional football players I've ever covered. I remember when he was sat back down for Russell Wilson, and he just took it. He said he didn't play well enough. He never sulked. He was there with his teammates. He was active. He was a positive presence in the locker room. His teammates absolutely loved him. So this is a guy that can lead a locker room as a quarterback. He has every single intangible checked off. So I really like Justin Fields, high character guy, extremely athletic, good arm. Those are the things you probably knew about him. The things that I think in terms of Fields that maybe you don't know that stick out are, one, I think that he has been really working behind the scenes to improve his deficiencies. So when he was with the Bears, his footwork got changed, his throwing motion got changed. The Steelers took him in last year and said, "We'll work with you, but we want you to do what's comfortable for you." And so he switched his footwork. He was initially a right foot first guy forward. He went back to his left foot because that's more comfortable for him. That's what he did at Ohio State when you saw him play at a high level. So he's more comfortable mechanically, and I think you saw that last year. As a processor, I think he puts in relentless time in the film room, but it doesn't always translate to the football field. Now, he has done a nice job throughout his career. The times to throw have gone down every single year. Last year was the best it's ever been, but still, it was over 3 seconds. He runs into sacks sometimes. The feel in the pocket isn't always great. He can have spotty instances of accuracy to all levels of the field. He also makes marvel throws out of structure, though, so he offsets that. So this is a player that can ride the ups and downs, right? I mean, you can really see the intangible part of it. You see the athleticism, you see the QB run game you can lean into. As a passer, though, it's a trip. So you can have one game where he looks great. You can have the next game where it just looks like, wow, is this guy even a starting quarterback? And so
Mm.
there's a lot that goes in to what Justin Fields is as a player. Very talented. I like that he has upside, but he has not realized that yet. So he's going to take some coaching to get there.
I mean, you look at those 6 games, he was 4-2. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 10 touchdowns in that time
Yep.
and not a lot of interceptions, right? Was it one or two interceptions during that
One.
spout? Like how 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 on earth did they justify sitting him? I mean, I understand Russell Wilson is who he is, but I mean, why not stay with the hot hand? It seems like.
Well, there were a few reasons why. One, they love going under center.
Mm,
And Justin Fields has had trouble going under center in his career, not because of anything in mobility, but he just doesn't focus the snap into his hands well enough. He had so many fumbles, just center quarterback exchanges. Mike
mm,
Tomlin just doesn't tolerate that. I think that was a big part of it. I think the fact that he had his two worst games probably on film. Statistically, the Raiders game was really good, but you watch the film, it's a rough watch. Then the Dallas game was also a rough watch. The kind of almost turnovers that, the almost picks in that Dallas game, there were
yeah.
probably 2 or 3 of them. And so it just kind of jumped up on him. It just was bad timing, right? Russ was finally getting healthy, and then he just happened to have 2 down games in terms of throwing the ball. And so they kind of chased the upside of Russ, and then Russ came in and was really good, and then obviously fell off a cliff. But I
And
think
why not
that's
go
what
back
kind of
to him? Why? Sorry, why not go back to him at that point? Like there was a 5 game skid there, right?
yeah. I mean,
It,
listen, Mike Tomlin is not a reactive coach.
mm,
Um, he is a guy that values his veterans and guys like Russ because he has pedigree. He's a Super Bowl winner.
hmm.
He just has the utmost respect for Russell Wilson, and he wasn't going to change it. Listen, this was never a competition in training camp. I mean, Russ had the job. Russ barely ever practiced and still got the quarterback one job.
Right.
Like Russ was starting the whole time. So I mean, I guess you can even kind of punch back at the fact that did Justin Fields even get benched, or was he just a backup that got put back on the bench? I think
Right.
So I agree. I think the Steelers, looking back on it, I think if you ask some of them in the organization, I know there were people that wanted to keep playing Justin Fields. I think Arthur Smith was one of those people that wanted to keep playing Justin Fields, but Mike Tomlin literally said when he made it, he went Lone Ranger. He went against everybody. He's the head coach. He made the decision. I think if you would ask Mike Tomlin right now if he could go back and go to that decision, would he keep playing Justin Fields? I think he probably would. And so I look back at that and say, man, I think it was a missed opportunity for them to evaluate what Justin Fields was and what he could do in a full season. Because I will say, I think he looked better last year than he did in his time in Chicago. From footwork, from his accuracy, from the time to process, things took a step forward. They didn't fully get there, but he took care of the football better than he ever had in Chicago. He was a walking turnover in Chicago. We'll see in New York if that can kind of sustain itself. The one interception, the fumbles going down, all that. That's going to be a big part of his success. But if it sustains itself, I think Justin Fields is easily a starting level quarterback in this NFL, and I think he can continue to take steps forward.
So, so in your opinion, I guess you're kind of saying that the Steelers did kind of view him as a potential long-term starter, especially if it seemed like they did want to keep him. I mean, the money wasn't that far off from what the Jets and the Steelers offered him. Like, ha- does Arthur Smith really like him as a quarterback? Because I know there were some rumors that Arthur Smith kind of wanted to go back to him, and Tomlin kind of overruled him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he liked him. I don't know if the Steelers liked
Mm,
him as a long-term star. I think they liked him as a bridge. I think that's how they
mm,
viewed him, as a one-year bridge with upside, right? It was kind of like, to their thought process, the worst thing that can happen is he's not good. You get a top pick. The best thing that happens is he's the next of the Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith type, where he's a guy that maybe doesn't work out his first stop, and boom, he's back and is getting a big contract next year. So you might have your long-term answer. And so I
That's
think they like
exactly that,
that.
that's exactly what what I think the Jets are trying to do right now. It's either he's a lottery ticket. where if it works, great, you may have a long-term starter. If it doesn't, and you're picking top 7, top 5 again, well, then plan A of picking a quarterback in a good quarterback draft is back on the table, you know?
Yep. That's exactly what the Steelers wanted to do. They didn't
Yep.
want to be stuck with a veteran that didn't have long-term upside. Obviously, they're going to be, but they wanted Justin Fields for that reason, but it was at the right price. I also think the Jets giving him the amount of guaranteed money they did gave Justin Fields 2-year security instead of 1, because even
Mm,
if he gets cut, he still sees 10 million if he gets cut because he got 30 in guarantees. The Steelers were only offering 20. So they didn't offer any guarantees beyond the first year. So Justin Fields could have
right.
easily been cut next year if he had been given a 2-year deal. So it makes so much sense for him to go to the Jets considering what the Steelers offer was. But the Steelers definitely view Justin Fields extremely favorably as that type of bridge quarterback with upside, and we'll see if he can realize his potential. But I think he's a good lottery ticket if you don't have the answer.
So what did the offense really look like with Arthur Smith and Justin Fields? Was it a lot of run option kind of things? Because we know he's one of the better running quarterbacks in the league. And do you think that's the best way for the Jets to kind of maximize his skill set, is kind of do that work off the run type of offense?
Yeah, they leaned into that for sure. They leaned into the QB power, QB counter, QB run
Hmm.
part of this game, read options, of course. That was a big part of the Justin Fields offense. And even when he had his packages, that was a big part of it for them too. They leaned into his strengths. Justin is more comfortable throwing outside the numbers than in between. He has
Hmm.
the arm strength and the talent to throw in the middle of the field, but the processing and anticipation is spotty. So sometimes you see great flashes of it, but it's not consistent. So they kind of kept him outside the numbers. So a lot of out routes, a lot of curls, deep balls on the 9 routes and the go balls. They gave him those. Rollouts and bootlegs were a big part of the offense as well to just get him comfortable because he had the run option or he could dump it off. 3-level read, very easy. They made it pretty easy on him. They gave him basically triangle reads, to where he didn't have to over process things. And as he got more comfortable, you started to see the confidence of Justin just grow. Right, you saw the Chargers game. I'll tell you what, any Jets fan that wants to watch his best game as a Steeler, it was that Chargers game. I just think you look at it as the consistency from snap 1 to the last snap, it all came out. He flashed anticipation in that one. He attacked all areas of the field. He ran well. He made decisions, good decisions. He didn't turn the ball over. It was a really good game. That's a really good one. And if you want to see him in comeback mode, not the best game overall. It was kind of up and down at the start, bad at the start, really good at the end. The Colts game is also really fun. He almost engineered a really good comeback in that one. But I really think the Arthur Smith offense was built around Justin Fields' legs, and that's how it should be because you can raise his
Right.
floor by leading into that. So I would also say this: I wouldn't necessarily dial up a bunch of this under center play action where he turns his back and has to throw dig routes or has to throw wrap routes. You can definitely put those in there, but because Arthur Smith's scheme, it's not completely like Ben Johnson's scheme. I'm assuming Engstrand is going to run similar things to what Ben Johnson did in Detroit, and Arthur Smith isn't too dissimilar to that. Arthur Smith did take away a lot of the middle of the field reads. They had some stuff there, but that's where Justin gets into trouble sometimes with his slower processing. Sometimes he doesn't let it rip. He just takes bad sacks. That's where you can get into murky waters with him. So make him comfortable, screens, runs, throw the ball outside the numbers, and mix in the middle of the field stuff and start to get him to grow and become more confident with that.
And there are a good amount of former Ohio State players that played with Justin Fields, won a national title with Justin Fields, that are on the Jets. And I'm obviously thinking Garrett Wilson, and I'm thinking Jeremy Ruckert, Long Island native. Um, you know, I I hope that whatever offense Engstrand comes up with, and we honestly, Jet fans, we don't know what kind of offense this is really going to look like, because Engstrand is honest. He's never called plays um, in an NFL in an NFL position before. So I just hope it looks more like what the Steelers did. I hope they take a page out of what Arthur Smith did, and I hope that I hope that Justin is able to rekindle that magic that he had with Garrett Wilson. So let's turn it a little bit. There are tons of rumors. It could happen tonight. It could happen tomorrow. We don't know, but it's very likely from what we're hearing online that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Give me your thoughts on that, and then I'll give you my thoughts on that.
It's very interesting to me. It doesn't feel like a move the Steelers should be making. They are
hmm
in quarterback purgatory to the worst end. They've done this kind of stitch things together thing already. It feels like to me, first of all, I think he's going to cost more than Russ. And the Steelers have other needs other than quarterback. They need a corner, they need defensive line, they need a running back. They probably could use another receiver. They could be signing guys, but they're probably waiting to see what Rodgers is going to get. Russ
hmm
is probably going to be cheaper. Russ fits the moonball offense, and they just got DK Metcalf. They're still going to have George Pickens. It makes sense. I also, the fact that Rodgers' mobility has been compromised, I don't love the fit with Arthur Smith. It would have to be very spread out, 11 personnel. Arthur Smith's very condensed motion, 12 personnel, under center. Not really Rodgers' 41-year-old Rodgers' game. I do think Rodgers is the better pure thrower right now. I think there's probably a higher ceiling with Rodgers if he ends up finding a
hmm
little bit of the magic again, and year two back from the Achilles looks a little better. But are you paying 25, 30 million in 1 year for this and thinking it's gonna level you up? There's a chance, but it's kinda uninspiring to me. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it, but then again, I'm not really a huge fan of bringing Russ back either. I think the Steelers are kinda caught in a too bad situation here.
I would love to know what Arthur Smith thinks because he was interviewed by the Jets to come in before going to the Steelers to be that offensive overseer, whatever you want to call it, because Nathaniel Hackett was not an offensive coordinator in any sense of the imagination. So I I would think that Arthur Smith is not so in favor of working with Aaron Rodgers because he had an opportunity already with the Jets and he turned it down. So there's so much more that comes along with Aaron Rodgers than just his play. Yes, he's probably the best thrower of the football ever, but there's all the extra stuff that comes on, throwing, not directly throwing teammates under the bus, but like half-handedly doing it and just causing so much more drama um, than is needed. And I don't know how his personality, DK Metcalf's personality, George Pickens' personality are all going to work together. Um, do you think Tomlin is going to be able to handle that? And also, I guess, do you think Tomlin's a bit on the hot seat? Because you hear a lot of Steeler fans talk about how, yeah, never had a losing season, but you're consistently one and done in the playoffs ever since, you know, Big Ben retired. So what do you think?
I mean, listen, Tomlin's trying to run again the AB Lev Bell Big Ben era because that was a lot for him to handle already. And
hmm
he's gonna have a lot of personalities to handle. I think he's a great manager of tough personalities. I think he is the best in the game at that right now. I don't think there's anyone better, but even for Mike Tomlin, that's a hard ask. And I do think it's a rocky kind of marriage, right? To
hmm
have what Rodgers would do, the brash nature of him, the two crash outs at wide receiver and DK Metcalf and George Pickens. I mean, that's a hard line to through. I think that's a big time concern for them too. I'll also say this though. I think Russell Wilson's not exactly liked in the organization right now. I think he burned a few bridges there with some of the stuff that came out about the strained relationship between him and Arthur Smith after the
hmm
season. That's not a perfect kind of seamless fit either. Steelers are kind of in a rock and a hard place there. As for Mike Tomlin being on the hot seat, no. Everyone asked me this, and listen, he's got 3 years left on his deal. The Steelers do not fire coaches early. They don't. They are the bastion of stability. You look at Art Rooney and what he thinks about Mike Tomlin. He thinks the world of him. I think Mike Tomlin's got at least 2 more years with the Steelers, even if he doesn't win a playoff game. He can go 10-7, 10-7, and be out of the playoffs both years. He could miss the playoffs 1 year and still be with them. His contract expires in 2027. That would be the year I think he'd be on the hot seat. But I don't think they're going to fire him after next year. I can't even imagine that. Even if they went 4-13 and this crashed and burned, they would be like, cool, we have Mike Tomlin. We'll just select the quarterback. Like that's what they would do. I do not think that they are going to fire Mike Tomlin
Okay.
anytime soon, really.
Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate you spending the time with me, giving us your insight on Justin Fields. I hope for the Jet fans that are watching, this was as informative as it could be. We really don't know, honestly, what Justin Fields will be, but I I really hope that this works out. I am so done with being in QB purgatory. I don't want to keep picking QBs. I want this to actually develop somebody, and I hope he has the Darnold, the Geno glow up, for lack of a better term. So again, thanks for hanging out with me, Nick. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, X at Farabaugh FB. If you want to follow me on Blue Sky, I'm at Nick Farabaugh there. And make sure to read the stuff over Penn Live, Steelers things going over there.
All right, awesome. Until next time, let's go Jets.